The wind had a cruel way of telling the truth out here. It scraped across the dry plains, whispering of things long dead, lost crops, lost dreams, and men who'd never returned from the war. Eli Turner rode through it like a ghost who'd forgotten what he was searching for. His hat was pulled low, his coat frayed at the edges, and his horse's hooves kicked up thin swirls of dust that hung in the dying sunlight. He hadn't spoken to another soul in weeks, maybe months. He was just a man with too much past and too little future. When the trail curved around a dry creek bed, he spotted smoke, not from a campfire, but from a chimney. A lone farmhouse stood there, crooked and weary, its fence half collapsed, its fields yellowed and bare. He slowed his horse. Something about that house felt alive, desperate. Then came the sound, a click of iron behind him. "Don't move," a woman's voice warned. Eli froze. He turned just enough to see her. A slender woman, hair tangled from wind, face streaked with dust and courage. Her hands shook slightly on the rifle she aimed at his heart. "Ma'am," Eli said quietly, "if you're fixin' to shoot, you'd best not hesitate." She swallowed hard. Her eyes were fierce but tired. "Who sent you?" "The men from Hollow Creek." "No one sent me," Eli replied. "Just ridin' through." "You lie. They said they'd come back. They said they'd take my boys next time if I didn't pay." Eli could see it now. The broken gate, the tracks in the mud, a child's boot half buried near the porch. He slowly raised his hands. "I ain't one of them, ma'am. I don't rob women or steal from families." The barrel of her rifle lowered a fraction, just enough for him to see the fear swimming behind her anger. Then, suddenly, her grip weakened. The gun slipped from her fingers, landing in the dust with a dull thud. Tears welled in her eyes. "Take me as your prisoner, if you must, just save my family." The words hit Eli harder than any bullet could. Her name was Clara Hayes, and her story was the kind that broke even the toughest hearts. Her husband, Samuel, had gone to fight for the Union 3 years back. He never came home. She'd been left with 2 young boys, Thomas, 12, and Jamie, barely 8. Their crops had failed. The cattle had been stolen. And now, a band of raiders from Hollow Creek demanded protection money she didn't have. Eli listened as she spoke, her voice shaking as she poured out months of fear. He could have left. God knows, he should have. But something in her eyes, that desperate courage, reminded him of a woman he'd once loved and lost. "Where are the boys now?" he asked. "Hiding in the root cellar," she said softly. He nodded. "Then you best call 'em up. Ain't no use in kids stayin' underground when I'm here." "You'll help us?" she asked, barely believing it. Eli looked around. The barn sagging, the well nearly dry, the faint tracks of horses leading north. "I'll stay till this place is safe again," he said. "But I ain't doin' it for free. You'll owe me a hot meal and a bit of kindness. That's all." Clara's lips trembled into something almost like a smile. "That, I can give." That night, the Turner place came alive again. Eli helped patch the fences, checked the barn, and found 2 old rifles with just enough powder left for a fight if one came. Clara cooked what little she had, cornbread, dried beans, and a whisper of hope. When the boys came up from the cellar, they looked at Eli with a mix of fear and awe. He looked like the stories their pa used to tell, the kind of man who'd crossed deserts and faced down danger without blinking. "Are you gonna shoot the bad men?" Jamie asked, his voice small. Eli knelt down beside him. "Only if they give me no choice, son." For the first time in a long time, Eli felt a reason to stay put. The next morning, he rode out to scout the Hollow Creek Trail. The raiders had a camp there. He could smell the smoke before he saw it. But when he got close enough, the sight froze him. At the center of the camp sat a man with a black hat and a familiar scar cutting down his jaw. Eli's heart turned to stone. It couldn't be Cole Turner, he whispered. His brother. The same brother he'd buried in his heart years ago, after Cole deserted his unit, robbed a supply train, and vanished into outlaw life. And now he was here, leading the very gang that had been bleeding Clara's family dry. Eli turned his horse and rode back hard. The ghosts he'd tried to outrun had finally caught up. When he returned, Clara met him by the well, worry etched deep in her face. "What did you find?" she asked. Eli hesitated. "More than I wanted to." "Will they come back?" He nodded grimly. "Soon. Maybe tonight." She stepped closer. "Eli, you look like you've seen a ghost." He looked at her, eyes hollow with guilt. "I have." And before he could stop himself, he told her everything, about the war, about his brother, about the blood on both their hands. When he finished, Clara said nothing for a long moment. Then she reached out, touching his arm gently. "You can't choose your family," she whispered. "But you can choose what kind of man you'll be now." Her words lit something in him, a spark he thought the world had long since stamped out. That night, he loaded his rifle, sharpened his knife, and whispered a prayer into the cold wind. By dawn, the valley was silent, holding its breath. The bandits came as the first light touched the hills, 6 riders, dust rising behind them like smoke. Cole rode in front, black hat tilted low, grin cruel as ever. "Well, well," he called out as they stopped before the porch. "Didn't think we'd have visitors. You took something that belongs to us, brother." Eli stepped down from the porch, rifle in hand. "Ain't your brother anymore, Cole." Cole laughed. "You always were the righteous one. Tell me, Eli, how's that worked out for you? You still got blood on your hands, same as me." Eli kept his eyes steady. "Difference is, I'm tryin' to wash it off." Cole's grin faded. "Then you'll die tryin'." He motioned to his men. Guns lifted. The world held still. Eli fired first. One shot, clean, fast, dropped the man nearest Clara's barn. Chaos broke loose. Bullets tore through the morning air. Horses screamed. Eli moved like a man possessed, his rifle steady, his heart hammering. He didn't fight for revenge. He fought for that woman, for her boys, for the tiny flicker of redemption he'd found in this godforsaken valley. 2 men fell. A third turned and fled. Then, through the smoke, Cole charged, his pistol drawn, his face twisted in rage. "You should have stayed dead, Eli," he shouted. They clashed near the corral, brothers bound by blood and broken pasts. The fight was brutal, close, and raw. Cole struck him hard across the jaw. Eli fell back, rolling in the dust, reaching for his revolver. Cole raised his gun to fire, but a single, trembling voice cut through the chaos. "Stop." It was Thomas, Clara's eldest. He stood there, holding Eli's fallen rifle, tears streaking down his face. "Please don't hurt him." Cole froze for a moment, just long enough. Eli surged forward and drove his shoulder into Cole's chest. The two crashed to the ground. The gun fired, once, twice, and then went silent. When the dust settled, Eli was kneeling, blood blooming across his shirt. Cole lay still beside him, eyes open to the sky. Clara ran to Eli, catching him as he fell. "No, no, don't you dare," she whispered. "Don't you dare leave us now." He smiled faintly, breath shallow. "You're safe, now. That's all I needed." Her tears fell onto his hands, warm and desperate. "You didn't have to do this." "Maybe not," he murmured, "but I reckon a man gets one good chance to make things right." "I took mine." The boys knelt beside him, and for a moment, the whole world seemed to go quiet, just the wind, the soft cry of a morning dove, and the last breath of a man who had finally found peace. When the sun rose higher, the land looked different. The air smelled of rain. Weeks later, when the first storm broke over the valley, Clara stood on the porch watching it fall. The earth drank deeply, and green began to return where dust had ruled. Her boys played in the mud, laughing again. A small wooden cross stood beneath the old oak tree, marked simply with the name, Eli. Beside it, his horse grazed freely, refusing to wander far. Clara placed a hand on the cross. "You saved more than just our lives," she whispered. "You saved our faith." And as thunder rolled across the hills, the first flowers of spring began to bloom on the Turner farm, proof that even in the hardest places, kindness could take root again. Because sometimes the bravest hearts don't wear badges or crowns. They just show up, broken and tired, and choose to do the right thing anyway. The road that cut through Sage Valley hadn't seen much traffic in years. The asphalt was cracked, the air dry, and the sky so wide it made a man feel small just looking at it. The only sound came from a distant hum of windmills and the faint creak of a pickup rolling over gravel. Eli Turner drove that pickup like it was all that kept him tethered to the world. The old Chevy rattled with every bump, dust kicking up behind it, his reflection faint in the side mirror, a man in his 40s, face lined by time and guilt. Once, he'd been a rodeo star, a name people cheered for. Now he was just another drifter with too many regrets and not enough reasons to stop moving. He told himself he was just passing through. He always was. But fate has a way of laying traps in the quietest places. Just outside of town, he spotted a ranch that looked half dead, fences collapsed, fields brittle and yellow, a "for sale" sign leaning crooked in the dirt. Smoke rose from the chimney, thin and weak. He slowed down, uneasy curiosity pulling at him. That's when a gunshot cracked through the stillness. The sound made him slam the brakes. He jumped out of the truck, heart pounding, scanning the open land. Then he heard a woman's voice, sharp, shaking. "Don't move. I said don't move." Eli turned slowly, his hands raised. She was standing on the porch, barefoot in the dust, wearing a faded flannel shirt and torn jeans. Her hands trembled around the barrel of a shotgun aimed straight at him. Her hair was loose and wild, eyes blazing with fear and defiance. "Ma'am," Eli said carefully, "that's a hell of a way to greet a stranger." "Who sent you?" she demanded. "Was it Jax and his crew?" "Don't even know who that is," Eli replied. "You're lying. They said they'd come back today. They said they'd take my boys if I didn't pay up." Her voice broke at the last word. Eli took a step back. "I ain't here for trouble. I was just passing by." But she didn't lower the gun. The tension cracked in the air like a storm waiting to break. Then, just as suddenly, she began to cry, not loud, just this sound that came from somewhere deep, like she was tired of being scared. The gun slipped from her hands and hit the porch with a hollow thud. "Take me as your prisoner if you have to," she whispered. "Just, please, save my family." Eli stood there frozen. He'd heard a lot of things in his life, pleas, prayers, curses, but nothing like that. He walked slowly toward her, eyes soft. "You don't need a prisoner," he said gently. "You need a hand." Her name was Clara Hayes. She was a widow, left alone on that dying ranch with 2 young sons, Luke and Noah. Her husband, Samuel, had died 2 years ago in a construction accident. Since then, everything had fallen apart. The bank wanted the land, and a local gang, Jax Miller's crew, had been shaking her down for protection money. Eli sat at her kitchen table that night, listening as she told him everything. The walls were bare, the floor creaked, and the old clock ticked like it was counting down the end of something. The boys peeked out from the hallway, silent and curious. "I've called the sheriff," Clara said. "But out here, they only come when someone's already dead." Eli nodded slowly. "Sounds about right. He could have left, should have." But something in her voice reminded him of another time, when he'd had someone waiting for him. When he'd promised to come home and didn't. He looked around that run-down kitchen, the faded family photos, the way Clara's hands trembled when she spoke, and he knew he wasn't going anywhere. "I'll help," he said finally. She blinked, not believing him. "Why?" Eli leaned back in his chair. "Let's just say I owe the world a few good deeds." That night, he parked his truck by the barn and slept in it, shotgun across his lap. He didn't know why, but for the first time in years, he wanted to protect something. Morning came with the sound of roosters and the smell of burnt coffee. Clara was already up, feeding the chickens, her boys running around barefoot, laughing. For a moment, the place didn't look broken at all. Eli worked the whole day, fixing fences, patching the barn roof, getting the old generator to hum again. By sunset, Clara brought him lemonade and said, "You work like someone who's running from something." He smiled faintly. "Ain't we all?" But as night fell, the laughter faded. The boys were inside, the wind had picked up, and somewhere out near the road, Eli heard engines. 3 trucks, headlights cutting through the dark. He knew what was coming. Clara came to the porch, fear flashing in her eyes. "They're here. Go inside," Eli said quietly. "No," she said, shaking her head. "I can't let you do this alone." "Ma'am," he said, voice firm now, "you got 2 boys who need their mama. Let me handle this." The truck stopped at the gate. 5 men got out, rough looking, armed. The one in front was tall, wearing a leather jacket and a cocky grin. "Evenin', Clara," he called out. "Heard you got yourself some new help." Eli stepped into the light. "That's right," the man laughed. "You're either real brave or real stupid, cowboy." Eli didn't answer. He just stood there, calm as stone. "Tell you what," Jax said, walking closer. "You hand over what she owes, and maybe we let you both keep breathing." Eli tilted his head. "And if I don't?" Jax grinned. "Then we take the ranch. And the lady." Before the man could take another step, Eli's shotgun roared. The blast tore through the air, scattering gravel and sending the others diving for cover. The fight was fast and vicious. Gunfire lit up the yard. One of the men went down, another ran for the truck. Eli moved with a quiet precision that came from years of hard lessons, ducking behind fences, firing clean shots, never wasting a bullet. Clara grabbed the boys and pulled them into the storm cellar as the chaos raged above. When it was over, the only sound was the ticking of the truck's cooling engine. 2 of Jax's men were gone. The others fled into the dark. But Jax himself stood at the gate, clutching his shoulder where a bullet had grazed him. "This ain't over," he shouted. "You don't know who you're messin' with." Eli stepped forward. "I know exactly who I'm messin' with." Jax stared at him for a long second, and something like recognition flickered in his eyes. "Wait a damn minute," he said. "Eli Turner, the rodeo guy, you're supposed to be dead." Eli's jaw tightened. "Not yet." Jax spat blood, then limped back to his truck. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." The tires spun out, kicking up dust as they vanished into the night. Clara came out from the cellar, trembling. "Are they gone?" "For now," Eli said. She looked at him, at the blood on his arm, the dirt on his face, the calm in his eyes, and something inside her broke. She walked toward him and whispered, "Why are you helping me?" He looked out over the dark fields. "Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it. Guess I'm just paying it forward." Over the next few days, they lived like people waiting for a storm. Eli taught Luke how to handle a rifle, taught Noah to ride the old mare out back. He helped Clara sell off scrap metal and fix the well. Slowly, the ranch began to breathe again. And in the quiet moments, something unspoken grew between them, not love, not yet, but something close to it. One evening, as the sun went down in a blaze of red, Clara found Eli sitting on the porch steps, staring at the horizon. "You never told me why you left the rodeo," she said softly. He was silent for a while. "Because I killed a man." Her breath caught. "It was an accident," he went on. "Bull rider named Mason. He was drunk, picked a fight. I hit him once, he fell wrong, cracked his head. I ran after that, spent years trying to be someone else. Turns out you can't run from who you are." Clara sat beside him. "You can't change what happened. But you can change what comes next." Before he could answer, headlights swept across the yard again. Jax had returned, this time with more men. Eli stood slowly, hand on his rifle. "Get the boys to the cellar," he said. "No," she said, shaking. "Not again. I'm done running." "Clara, Eli, please," she said, her eyes steady. "Let me stand with you." The trucks pulled up. The men fanned out, weapons raised. Jax climbed out, his arm in a sling, his face twisted with hate. "Told you I'd be back," he said. "And this time, you're not getting up." Eli stepped forward. "You don't have to do this, Jax. You've already lost enough." Jax laughed bitterly. "Don't talk to me like you know me." "I do," Eli said. "You think you're the only man who's thrown his life away. You still got a choice." Jax's face hardened. "You're a fool." The standoff hung in the air, tight as a drawn bow. Then one of Jax's men fired. Gunfire erupted again, wild and deafening. Eli fired back, hitting one, then another. Jax moved fast, ducking behind the truck, shouting orders. Clara, trembling but steady, fired once from the porch, saving Eli from a man sneaking up behind him. Then came the sound that ended it all, a single, echoing shot. Eli staggered. Jax's gun smoked in his hand. Eli looked down, saw the blood, and fell to his knees. Clara screamed and ran to him, catching him as he fell. The fight stopped. The world went quiet. Jax froze, breathing hard, staring at the man he'd just shot. Eli's hand reached for him, gripping his jacket weakly. "You can still stop this," he whispered. "Walk away." For a moment, something human flickered in Jax's eyes. He looked at Clara, at the boys who'd run out crying, and at Eli bleeding in her arms. Then he lowered his gun. He turned and left without another word. When the dust cleared, the sirens finally came, too late, as always. Clara held Eli's hand, tears streaming. "Don't you dare leave us," she whispered. He smiled faintly, eyes dimming. "Guess I finally did something right." And then he was gone. Weeks passed. The sheriff ran Jax out of town for good. The ranch got quiet again, but not empty. Clara kept it running with help from neighbors. The boys grew strong, and sometimes, at dusk, she'd stand on the porch and swear she could hear the rumble of Eli's old truck on the road. When spring came, wildflowers bloomed all over the valley, in places that had been dry for years. Clara placed a small wooden cross near the porch, carved with his name. "You saved more than just my family," she whispered. "You saved me." And the wind that moved through the grass seemed to carry his voice back to her, soft, steady, and free. Because even in the modern world, the heart of a cowboy doesn't die. It just keeps on riding.